Hello and welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And this podcast is being recorded on the land of the Anishinaabe, Odawa, and Mississauga people. It's important to me that I continue to learn about this land, the indigenous people who cared for it for so long, and also the history and culture of my settler and immigrant ancestors. I'm a Canadian yoga teacher, mom, entrepreneur, and forever student who loves to ask questions. I think that's why podcasting works for me. I get to ask a lot of questions about a topic I love, yoga, each and every week. And I'm so grateful that you are here so that we can learn together. I also work as the founder of Pelvic Health Professionals, a place where movement educators and healthcare professionals collaborate and learn the most up-to-date information regarding pelvic health. If you would like to join us, visit pelvichealthprofessionals.com. And if you're wondering, what is Pelvic Health Professionals all about? I am asking Tess, who is our guest for today's podcast. I asked her this near the end of our interview, but I want to share it here as I tell you about Pelvic Health Professionals. Here's what Tess had to say. Tess, if you were going to tell someone else about Pelvic Health Professionals, your experience of it, and don't filter yourself in this at all, just because I'm asking the question. How would you tell someone else about Pelvic Health Professionals if you were trying to tell them what it is?
All right. So first off, it's amazing. And I'm not just saying that because it's you. I honestly, I really have enjoyed Pelvic Health Professionals. I think that it's a wonderful group to learn all about pelvic health. I love that like you have all of these different people that come on from different modalities, different backgrounds, and we can explore so many different aspects of pelvic health. Like when I first joined, I was just kind of thinking, oh, pelvic health, yeah, like what's going on with the pelvis, and if you have any pain going on there, maybe for pregnancy, blah blah blah. I had some back pain due to an injury, and I was like, you know what, this might be helpful for me to learn these things. But honestly, since then, like it's just been like this world that I never knew existed, and it's so beautiful. And it's just a great community as well. Like I felt really supported by like, the calls that we have with you, because we have these, wonderful calls where we can chat and work with each other. And I'm loving the balance flow series that we have going on right now with Shelley Prosco. It's so good. So yeah, I love that you just have all these different aspects. Like you have these Q&As with these experts from around the world, different modalities. You have these times where we can connect with each other, get supported by you, and then we also have these really amazing courses that we can kind of dive into something a little bit more deeply. So yes, if anyone is thinking about it, definitely join because it is amazing.
It's so good to hear your words about it and your experience. So I really appreciate that.
Of course.
Thank you so much, Tess, for sharing your thoughts of Pelvic Health Professionals, for telling our listeners, and also for being a member inside of there. Again, Connected Yoga Teachers, if you're wanting to join us to learn a little bit more about how the body moves and works, visit pelvichealthprofessionals.com. Alrighty, if you are a fellow yoga teacher, practitioner, or entrepreneur, this podcast was made just for you because I get how it feels to be out there in the real world as a yoga teacher. And this podcast was designed as a place where you can connect to other yoga teachers, ideas, and information. Today's episode is powered by OfferingTree. I use and love this software in my own business because it automates everything. Bookings, payments, Zoom links, reminders, and so much more. We have a special podcast listener discount code over at offeringtree.com/Shannon. Also, today's episode just fits in so well with the direction that we've been going lately, and I love it when that happens. 2 weeks ago on the podcast, I shared an episode on confidence and my list of things that helped me when I was feeling very nervous to teach yoga. Then last week, I shared a live consultation call with Lindsay McMurray, where she bravely shared how anxiety was holding her back from teaching. Now, I'm going to link to both of those in the show notes. You don't have to listen to those first, but I think they go along so well when we're just not feeling very confident, when we're feeling that anxiety coming up as yoga teachers, or we're feeling like we're really in a place where we're kind of stuck or overwhelmed. Today, I'm so excited that you get to listen in to a conversation that I had with Tess Jewell-Larsen, who works with people who are dealing with burnout, overwhelm, stress, and anxiety. Tess is a yoga therapist in training, a certified mindfulness coach, and an experienced yoga teacher. She has a deep understanding of the challenges and struggles that come with burnout. She talks about how she personally experienced this herself, and she talks about her own stress and anxiety. Tess's journey began in a job that left her feeling unfulfilled and overwhelmed. And then she really talks about how she reached a breaking point during the pandemic. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. She made the decision to leave her job and embark on a path towards healing and self-discovery as a yoga teacher. And through this personal experience, Tess has gathered her own toolkit of techniques, and she's sharing those in talking with others, in working with others about how they can deal with stress, anxiety, and burnout. And you'll hear in this episode about how over and over again, the thing that Tess came back to was really connecting to self and having a relationship with self. Always, it's a little bit tricky when I go to title a podcast. There's so much contained in an episode, and then I need like 3 to 5 words to title it so that it shows up in your podcast feed. And it just kept popping up that it is all about self-connection, and we focus, of course, on yoga teachers. So let's dive right in and get to know Tess, especially if you're having one of those weeks where you just feel like you're overwhelmed, you're feeling burnt out, stressed, or you're dealing with anxiety. Welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher Podcast, Tess. I'm so glad that you're here today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Shannon.
So we are going to dive in and talk about what about when we're feeling like we're having a really tough time as yoga teachers? We're just feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. I'm feeling burnt out. I don't know that I have the confidence to put my stuff out there. But before we get into that, tell us, what's the work that you do and who do you do it for?
Yeah, thank you. So I am a stress and burnout coach, and I empower women professionals and high achievers to go from feeling exhausted, stressed, and burnt out to feeling balanced and thriving in their work and everyday life. So I am a certified mindfulness coach, an experienced yoga teacher, and a yoga therapist in training. And I'm also part of Shannon's Pelvic Health Professionals, which is an awesome group. And I've been loving all of the time that I spent in it.
That's amazing. I'm so glad that you're in that group. Where are you also located in the world?
Yeah, so I'm in Spain. I'm in northern Spain, green Spain. Not to be thought of as super sunny and dry. It rains a lot here. So on the north coast, it's very green, it's mountainous, it's beautiful. And I've been here for over a decade. And yeah, kind of long story, but as a kid, I lived in Barcelona for a while, and then came back in university just to kind of live in Spain for a little bit. And then I was like, yeah, actually, I really like living here up in the north because it was kind of a mixture. I'm originally from Oregon. So it was like a mixture of like the green of the valley of Oregon and the trees and the mountains with kind of what I grew up in Barcelona. So it was a nice little mixture of home.
That's amazing. So what got you on this journey of helping people with stress and burnout?
My own stress and burnout. Yeah. So, oof. I mean, okay. So I originally started getting into yoga in general because I struggled with anxiety, and I found a lot of solace in my practice of yoga, and then I was doing a completely different job, teaching, and I really burnt out teaching, especially over COVID. And so, like, some of the things that I was noticing, well, looking back, it's easier to say these things, right? But like at the time, like over several years, I was really losing my creativity. I was feeling exhausted. I was pulling away from my friends and family. And my anxiety was just going through the roof. I was having like bouts of panic attacks. And at the time, I didn't really put them all together, what was going on. I was just like, oh, I'm just, dealing with this, or I'm dealing with that, or I'm dealing with this. And it was like all separate things. And then I started with COVID, things got a lot worse. And I started realizing that it wasn't all just these separate things, that it was all kind of one big thing in general. It was I wasn't taking care of myself. And I wasn't taking the time that I needed for myself. So I kind of dove into figuring out how to do that. And part of that was my yoga, my own yoga practice. And that led me to like studying more with wonderful people around the world, including you, Shannon. And I really dove into how to continue to support myself mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And when I started doing this, I started connecting with more people. Like it was just kind of like this sort of natural thing that like, I was learning these things, so I was sharing it, and then more and more people were coming to me like that were really wanting support for stress, for anxiety, overwhelm, burnout. And it took me a while to realize like this is my niche, like this is my mission, right? Um but eventually I got there. And yeah, and so now that's, I find so much joy in helping others step out of their stress, their burnout, their anxiety through, the support that I can give them through coaching and yoga.
Here's a question on that. Thank you so much for sharing your own story of like how you were dealing with this overwhelm. And in the midst of that, a couple of things like how did you recognize, okay, I need to do something. I need to make a shift or change because I think, and I can only speak from my personal experience. Sometimes in those states of like overwhelm, like wow, there's so much happening. It's pretty easy, I have felt, to think, okay, I can't fit something else in. I can't fit in like more time for yoga. I just have to kind of get caught up and then I'll fit this in. Did you have feelings like that? And then how did you kind of overcome that if you did?
Yes, definitely. I totally felt like there wasn't time for me in all of everything that was going on. I'm very much a person that always wants to be doing something and filling up my plate, and very much a go-getter, go. And um I really struggle with making time for myself. This is not, it doesn't come naturally, we'll say. um or at least it doesn't come with like the upbringing that I had. And so, it, it doesn't what I found though is it doesn't have to take a lot of time, right? It's like little steps that you take every single day. It's all starts with your communicating with yourself. It all starts with your own relationship with yourself. And what I noticed is at like when I got to the point that I was like, I really need to make a difference in my life, is when I literally physically, mentally was falling apart. Like I could not anymore. And that was like the trigger to me, like something needs to change. I physically injured myself in a way that it will affect me for the rest of my life. Right. And I've been able to make huge recovery from them, but it's still an injury that I have and it will be there. Right. And so like these things that like happened to me, I was like, okay, no, I can't continue. I cannot continue this way. What is the thing that I'm missing? And I realized the biggest thing that I was missing was communicating with myself, my relationship with myself. I no longer had one. I was just doing everything for everyone else, trying to like do these things that, I thought were what was I something I needed to do in life to make me happy. But in reality, it just burned me out even more. And so taking those just a few moments every day in the start of my day and to ask myself, how am I doing? How am I feeling physically, mentally, emotionally? And then just taking one little step each day to meeting myself and supporting myself. That has been my huge revelation, I guess, in my own journey. And then I've also seen that so much in the people that I work with as well, that like just doing one small thing every day can make this incredible difference. And just from like a scientific point of view as well, right? Like there's so much science that shows that just spending a few moments or a few minutes on yourself, like maybe it's meditation, maybe it's, movement, like all of these things in a positive way, right? That it helps rewire our brain. So the more we do it in a consistent manner, it doesn't have to be a long time, the more our brain is rewired to say, okay, yes, like I need this, or I want this, or it makes me happy. I'm going to continue this way. And we start stepping out of those negative cycles.
What are some of the small steps? So you mentioned meditation. Forget what the other one was. What are some of those small steps that you suggest to other people or you've used yourself? Like, what are some of the tiny things that we could build in?
Yeah. So meditation is a great one. But I also like, and I don't just mean like just sitting down and like cross-legged meditation, right? Like meditation can be done in many different ways. I think, especially when we're getting started or we're feeling super overwhelmed, like habit stacking can be really beneficial, right? So, like when you're washing your face in the morning, for example, like as you're doing it, bring a lot of mindfulness into it, right? So it slows it down, it brings you into the present moment. Meditation is focus, right? It's training the brain to focus on one thing and not just be all over the place. So, when you're able to just focus on that one aspect of washing your face. So what is it like, noticing the water, what does the water look like? What is the sound of the water, as it hits the bowl beneath? What does it feel like to bring the water onto your face? Is it warm? Is it cool? How does it make you feel? The soap on your hands, how does it feel as you're, sort of sudsing up your hands and then lathering that onto your face? And then how does it feel as you take it off with the water, patting your face with the towel? These little things that you're doing these actions already, but you're just focusing them. You're sort of in some ways slowing them down and really allowing yourself to be in the present moment. And this is such a beautiful time for yourself, right? Because you're doing these actions already, but you're just shifting the way that you're looking at it. You're shifting your relationship with them, and you're shifting your relationship with yourself.
Oh, this is such a good idea to take something that we're already doing. And then instead of being like, oh my gosh, I didn't get this done or that done or da 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 da, or like going through our to do list or something that's irritating us about the room that we're in or thinking about, that we're coming right into that moment. Okay. Anything else that you find helps the people that you work with in terms of those small steps?
So I recommend setting out 10 minutes a day for you. And I call it my 10-minute method, stepping out of burnout.
Connected Yoga Teachers, Tess is going to tell us more about this 10-minute method at the end of our chat. She has a downloadable ebook that you get as a gift of thanks for having a listen all the way today to the end. And I'll make sure to link to that in our show notes as well. I just wanted to pop in here and tell you about that.
And so what it is at the beginning of the day, like I usually do this in the shower when I'm taking a shower in the morning, I'll ask myself, how am I feeling, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally. And if there's something that's like, maybe there's a blockage there, or there's something that's feeling a little bit lacking, like maybe I'm more tired than usual, or maybe I'm feeling more stiff than usual, then I'll see, okay, in those 10 minutes today, what can I do to support myself? So, do I need to get a little bit more movement, right? Should I, maybe, and what type of movement? So, should it be a flow? Should it be walking outside? Do I need like that fresh air in my face? As you know, Shannon, we're both walking buddies through Instagram. So often, like, walking is a big thing for me. And just spending time out in nature as well. But really asking yourself, what do you need for those 10 minutes? And then this 10 minutes can be planned, so they can be a scheduled thing at some point during your day. Maybe it's right then and there after your shower or after whatever time it is that you're asking yourself. Maybe it's in the middle of the day because okay, I need that break in the middle of the day. Maybe it's at the end of the day. And like, these things, as the more you do it, you'll notice times, like, there's usually more of kind of a set time that like fits best for you, that you need these things, and plan it into your, like, literally put it into your schedule. So it's like something that you quote unquote have to do, right? Like, it's just as important as that meeting. And then other times it's like, okay, there's, life is happening. When can I fit it in? And my suggestion always too, and I do this for myself as well, is I write it down. So, like, if I can't do it immediately, I write down what I want to do and I put it somewhere so I see it. So not only do I get a reminder in my schedule, Tess, you need to take these 10 minutes, but I also see, like, oh yes, I'm going to take 10 minutes, like, I'm feeling tired, so these 10 minutes today, I'm going to put my legs up on a chair, cushion it up, and do a 10-minute yoga nidra, right? Like, something that gives back to me, just these 10 minutes.
So it sounds like the time is the same, but does it change what you're doing changes depending on how you're feeling that day?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because it's all about that internal conversation. It's all about creating that conversation, like that loving relationship with myself, with yourself, of like, okay, what do I need? How can I give that to myself?
So what about for our teachers who know the benefits of this, and we have our own, let's say we have our own routine set up and we build in that relationship with self at some point during the day. And then we see the students come in to class, let's say, or maybe we're working with one particular student and they are just like always living in the brain and it's going a mile a minute. How can we start to build this in as we're teaching? How can we add this into a group class or a one on one session?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I think a lot of it is how we, especially, let's look at like a group session, right? So it's kind of allowing ourselves to use language in a way that allows the student to start creating that relationship, start asking themselves what they want. So one thing I like to do personally in sessions, in group sessions, is give a little time at some point in the session and say, like, take a little time now and ask yourself what your body needs. What sort of movement does your body need, right? And so I don't have necessarily fixed, like, asana for that part, right? Or fixed pranayama. Like, I have, like, okay, so maybe it's at the end of the session, right? We've done all these things. Okay, what is one final thing that your body is asking for? I'm going to give you, you'll have 30 seconds to do it. If you want to do two sides, like, I'll tell you halfway through, right? So you can switch the sides. And it's just creating that conversation for them as well, to explore, like, okay, what do I want? What do I need? Right. And kind of bringing them into that conversation.
Oh, I love this that we can bring it in. And I mean, that is really a time when we can bring that language in and we're asking people to notice what's going on with themselves, body or mind or spirit in that time. So if we get them in a yoga class, they're generally there to do that. What about if we are a yoga teacher who we understand, we know what it's like to really drop into the moment. We've done meditation, we've done yoga, we've stuck to our practice, but right now we're in a spot where we feel like, okay, I'm telling other people how to do this. I'm creating this space for them to do this. And still, I've gotten away from doing it myself. Like, I am feeling like on the inside, we're feeling burnt out. But then we go and teach a yoga class and everyone is saying, "Oh, you're so calm. Like your life must be so, zen and in the moment." What about when we're kind of doing that, when we're showing up very differently for ourselves than we are for our yoga students?
Um, I'm laughing because this is so true. I love like I get these comments all the time. Like, oh, you just must be just like the most zen person ever. It's like I have my stressful moments. I have my down moments for sure. And I know all of these things, like, like most of the listeners on this podcast, right? We know these things. We've trained in these things. But I think it's going back to that basic one first step of like really having that conversation with yourself and like asking yourself, A, how am I doing? And acknowledging with compassion whatever is coming up. Right. Because I think that so often we might ask ourselves, how am I doing? And then like, oh, I'm exhausted. Oh, I can't be exhausted. Right. Like I'm a yoga teacher. Like I can't feel burnt out. I'm a yoga teacher. That's just not me. Cause I'm hearing all the time from my students, oh, you must be living a Zen life. Yeah, totally. I am. So I can't be burnt out. Right. So like just take that step back and say, okay, actually realistically, like how am I feeling? And not judge yourself, not have like oh no, that can't be the case. Just really be like, yes, that is how I'm feeling. And that's okay. Right. It's okay to have a range of emotions. I think that it's okay to not be okay, but it's important to know that we can give back to ourselves. We can have these short moments with ourselves and just allow whatever is happening to happen, and also to reach out, right? To reach out to someone if you're really feeling overwhelmed, stressed, reach out to a friend, ask them, if they can maybe be your accountability partner for showing up for yourself, maybe for going on a walk with you. Maybe you have a friend who's another yoga teacher, and like, you're like, you know what? I really need to take a little time off. Like, can they cover one of my classes? Reach out to, um, you know, whoever it might be, family member, friend, to coach, therapist, whatever you need. Like, just because we know these things doesn't mean that we don't also need support. So I think it's like that first conversation with yourself, like, okay, how am I doing? And then can I get support from someone else? And that's okay. It's okay to like need support.
Oh, I love this message of it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to reach out and ask for support. We really need to do that at different times. You mentioned finding a sub and taking some time off. Is that sometimes the answer? Like, I know that sometimes that feels like the answer as an entrepreneur. I'm just like, I need a break from all of this. I need a holiday. What are your thoughts around like taking time off and building that in, but also at the same point, like not running away from it? Not being
Yeah,
like,
no, and I don't mean it as like a running away thing. I think it's important to know your limits, right? And like you said, like building in time for yourself, and scheduling time off. Like, I think a lot of us, because yoga is, it does bring so much joy. And at least for me, like I get so much joy from sharing it, right? But it's tiring. And depending on your clients, it might be a little bit more tiring than otherwise. Sometimes like if you're getting a lot of stuff, you have your tools to help kind of protect you from that energy. But of course, over time, like that, it's hard. And so, building that time in to your schedule to say, okay, no, these are times that are just for me. These are times for me, for myself. These are times for me and my family, my friends, and not like go, 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 go all the time. Like, I think that's okay to say, yes, we can build in time. We don't have to teach 24/7. Right. And it is okay to take time off when you need to take time off. But also, I think that the most important thing is not just that, like taking time off is good, but it's meeting yourself every single day. Because if you meet yourself every single day and give yourself back what you're looking for every single day, even though it seems like it's short amounts of time, realistically, those short amounts of time are way more in the long run than if you just take like an hour off of class, right? So like if you spent 10 minutes every day, then you're going to give yourself a lot more time than if you just give yourself 1 hour off a week, right?
Oh yeah, I love this. That it really can make a huge difference day to day and to plan it. Connected Yoga Teachers, I'm popping in here for a moment to say a huge thank you to our sponsor for today's episode, OfferingTree. And I also wanted to tell you a real-time story about using them this week. I was doing an interview with a fellow podcaster and yoga teacher, and she remarked on how professional it felt to book a podcast interview with us and get text and email reminders. So I let her know right away that it's all thanks to OfferingTree. If you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you know that I don't do ads for just random products or companies. I'm very, very fussy with who sponsors and supports the podcast. I like to collaborate with companies like OfferingTree. I'm already using their software and talking about them a lot to other yoga teachers, and I so appreciate their amazing customer service. Also, side note, I was really excited to see that Tess also uses OfferingTree for her website. We'll link to that website in our show notes for sure. It looks amazing, Tess, super clean and very professional. Connected Yoga Teachers, if you are looking for a software that is going to automate and simplify your business that is built for yoga teachers and studios, check out OfferingTree. There's a free trial, and if you decide to sign up, make sure to use our discount code. That's over at offeringtree.com/Shannon. Now let's get back to this conversation with Tess all about how we can connect to self and really deal with those days of feeling overwhelmed, stressed, and burnt out. For the yoga teacher who's feeling like, oh my gosh, I have so much on my plate. I'm like burnt out. I'm tired. I don't even want to go teach. I don't feel creative in planning my class or putting a theme to this or anything, or I don't even want to look at marketing. Instead, I'm just going to, go scroll some social media channel or watch this TV show and zone out. What would you say to that person in that moment where they're like, I don't know how I could even fit 10 minutes in?
Well, I think we need to look at like if we're getting to the moment, like, and we all have it, like, oh, I need to do this. Oh, I'm just going to go scroll on my phone, right? Like, I love that. That is your body showing you that you're in a stress mode, right? You're in your sympathetic nervous system. You're, you know, fleeing from the situation because it's overwhelming you, right? So take 5 to 10 minutes. Honestly, take those 5 to 10 minutes to downregulate your nervous system, to and maybe that's noticing your senses, right? So starting with your hearing and then moving into sight, then moving into like smell, touch, taste, right? It's like little by little coming into your body, coming into the present moment. You could try things like breath work like Brahmari, right? Because this is a really good technique to help calm the system. Something I've learned recently, which I think is really fascinating, is when we exhale out through the nose and hum, this increases our release of a chemical called nitric oxide. And nitric oxide helps calm our system. It's also really good for like cleaning out the system. And so when like doing things like Brahmari, not only do we help calm the system, our heart rate lowers, right? And it helps us focus. And so sometimes we just need those few minutes to down regulate, to help bring our awareness back into the present moment so we can then focus on what we need to do. And you'll find when you do that you might actually get that job done faster because you're like actually focusing on it and you're not looking at your phone. And then after you do it, spend a little bit more time, a minute or two, once again, and just bringing yourself back in. And so you're kind of sandwiching it on either side. And this can be a really good way to just boost yourself up, especially when you're noticing I'm fleeing from the situation. I'm looking at my phone. I can't handle this because it's too overwhelming, right? Like those few moments, while it seems like, oh, I'm adding something extra, really, you're actually giving back to yourself and you're giving yourself so much more time.
I like this. Really noticing when we're fleeing, let's say we're using social media or something like that to flee a situation. I also know what it feels like to be um, feeling kind of like getting low on energy in the day or like not being very productive with my work and then just thinking, you know what? That's it. I'm like gonna go out for a walk outside
Yeah,
and take some photos of nature and post it on Instagram. Um, and that will help me like get into the moment. It's interesting that taking photos actually does help me drop in a little bit. I do share them on Instagram sometimes, but um, because it helps me notice like tiny little things in nature.
I
Um,
love that.
like let's say
Yeah.
a pine cone or something, and helps me to drop in. But I think it's important to highlight what you're saying is to build this in every day so that maybe we don't get to that point of, oh gosh, I need to do something to really switch up my energy here. Do you have any thoughts on like, let's say we do have that practice built in. We do something
Hmm.
for ourselves every day. But then we get into that point where we feel like our energy is getting really low or we just feel like, oh, this is too much of a struggle for what I'm doing right now. Any thoughts on that?
I think, well, a couple of things. The first one that I would say is reach out for support. Um, if you're doing all of these things for yourself and you're still not like feeling the benefits, this is a good sign that you could use some extra support, right? And maybe you have too many things on your schedule as well, right? Like it's important to like prioritize. So do you kind of look at your schedule, prioritize the important things that need to be done? Because lots of times we're doing lots of things that don't necessarily need to be done. I am so guilty of this. Like I just want to put out there, like I am so guilty of this. Um, and sometimes this is also like that kind of going into that like flight fight mode as well, right? Because like you're like, oh well, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to do all these other things because it makes me feel productive, but then I'm still not getting that other thing done, so that's stressing me out, right? And so like kind of notice like what do you have to get done, like what needs to be done, what can be rearranged for another time, what can be deleted completely, and what can you get support with.
So good, so good. Something that's been helping me in the last week is when I find myself going to avoid a thing that's at the top of my priority list. It's like this has to happen at some point either today or this week is I'll time myself doing it. So I saw this on some, I don't know, it was like some psychology thing, like that big thing that you're kind of putting off is maybe not that big and to to get the brain in a different state, we just decide, okay, how long is it going to actually take me to, let's say, put this email together to let everyone know about the class that I'm doing? How long does it actually take? And it's fascinating because it's usually not that long. It might be like, oh, that actually only took 10 minutes, but I've been avoiding it for days. I don't know if you find anything similar.
Yes, 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 totally, totally, totally. And actually, it made me think of as well, like sometimes it's helpful to give yourself a timer on something and just say, okay, I'm going to do it for this amount of time, right? And maybe have it be on like the lower amount of time. It's the lowest amount of time that you know you'll get it done. Oh, and not necessarily you can get it done, but you'll show up to do it. And not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to be the whole time to make it get done. It's just like, okay, so I'm going to say, I'm not getting this email done. So I'm going to give myself 5 minutes, right? I'm going to give myself 5 minutes to start writing. And then after those 5 minutes, you go, okay, like your alarm might go off and it's like, okay, 5 minutes on. And you can get up and we walk away for a little bit, maybe get a drink, maybe do something, and then come back in another 5 minutes, right? You can do that incremental. Or you can say, actually, you know what? I'm in a groove right now. I'm going to keep going for another 5 minutes right then and there, right? So you're using these timers as sort of these little benchmark steps. It's kind of like, I don't know if anyone out there, once again, big walker, hiker. And sometimes it's like, if it's a big, it's a steep hill, and I'm like going up and I'm like, I need a break, but oh my gosh, like, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to walk to that tree. I'm going to walk to that tree. I'm going to get to that tree. And then I'm going to ask myself, like, how am I doing? Do I need to stop? Do I need to take a break, or can I keep going? And then when I get to that tree, I'm like, okay, how am I doing? Right? Oh, I need a couple second break just to get my breath back. Or no, actually, I'm feeling good. I'm going to go up to the next rock, And so it's creating these little steps, these little benchmarks to get to. And that's why this timer can be really helpful, because it's like, if you have it at a short amount of time that yes, I can show up for that, right? I'm going to show up for those 5 minutes. Then, okay, those next 5 minutes. So like that same thing that you're saying, like, okay, actually time it. How long does it really take you to do it? Or B, like, give yourself those little stepping stones to like take one step and then take the next step after that. And then I really like that as well, because it's like, you're once again going back to that conversation with yourself. That's like supportive friend. Like, how you doing? Can you keep going? Do you need to take a break? And so you're creating that relationship with yourself, or you're like continuing that relationship with yourself.
Oh my gosh, I love how this just keeps coming back to like making that relationship with ourselves, and then also knowing when we need to reach out and say like, okay, I need some support, whether that's like letting a fellow entrepreneur know, hey, I'm trying to get this project done. Can you just like hold me accountable for this? Or can you walk me through this? Like where I'm feeling stuck, or can you let me talk through it, or whatever. This is really great. If our connected yoga teachers are having a listen now and they're feeling like they want to reach out to you and find some support with stress, overwhelm, or anxiety, where do they find you?
So you can find me a few different ways. Probably the best way is through my website, tessjewell-larsen.coach. That's like my sort of coaching website. And I do actually have a yoga website as well, Tytony Yoga. That's TYTONI yoga.com. Either of those places are really good ways to connect with me, or on Instagram, Facebook, Tess Jewell-Larsen. I'm happy to help you in any way that I can. At the moment, I'm also offering free burnout breakthrough calls, is what I call them. It's 30 minutes. You can meet with me and we can see what are those first steps. Where are you right now, and how can we take those first steps to supporting you as you move forward in your healing journey?
That's amazing. We'll make sure to link to those in our show notes. Just thank you so much for taking the time to walk us through this, to share your own story of like how you got here and how you're helping people now. It's been really great to learn from you. Thank you, Tess.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
You were going to tell us about a freebie that you have for our connected yoga teachers. Tell us about that.
So I have this ebook, this mini ebook. It's free, and it helps guide you through what we were talking about earlier, this 10-minute method of helping you release your stress and burnout, and not just like by leaving everything behind and dropping everything and giving yourself a big holiday, but like meeting yourself every single day with love, with compassion, asking yourself, how can I support myself? And so this ebook helps kind of guide you through that. And then it also gives you a little calendar that you can use to fit this into your daily life.
That's so cool. So we'll link to it in the show notes then. If people are having a listen now, do you have the website URL?
Yes, it's Tess Jewell-Larsen. That's 3 L's. Sorry, lots of L's in my name. .coach/freebie.
All right. We'll link to that in our show notes if people are listening and on the go. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much again, Tess. What an amazing chat this was, especially for the days when we're feeling like we're all alone, we're feeling stressed out, overwhelmed, burnt out, or just like lacking the motivation as entrepreneurs and yoga teachers. I'm going to make sure to link to everything in our show notes, Connected Yoga Teachers. That's over at theconnectedyogateacher.com/328. Or if you go to our website and you type in Tess, Tess, you're going to come up with right away. The search bar always works for episodes like this. You can search Tess and find today's episode. And I wanted to leave you with a little story here because Tess and I were talking about how sometimes when one of the tasks that we're going to do is overwhelming, we can try timing it, seeing how long it takes us to actually do this. And I want to tell you that I use this in my own, not really in my own business or my own life, but my neighbor came over and her daughter was really struggling with cleaning her room. And I have to say, gosh, I struggled so much when I was younger with cleaning my room, even though I actually do really enjoy cleaning, but it got to this place of overwhelm when I was 11 or 12 years old. And I remember that feeling so well. So I said to my neighbor, tell her that if she gets her room clean, time it, see what she can get done in an hour with help. Her mom was willing to help her. And then come on over and we'll have a popsicle and we'll sit outside and celebrate together. And she came over so excited. In an hour's worth of time, she cleaned her entire room, closet and everything. And everyone was a bit shocked that it only took an hour. And we enjoyed the popsicle. So if you are feeling like you are putting something off and really just it's dragging you down, time yourself this week. Maybe give yourself a popsicle or a treat at the end when you get it done. And let me know. You can tag me on Instagram. It's at The Connected Yoga Teacher. I'm also on Facebook. I love to hear from all of you on social media. If you are wanting to hang out in real time, in person, we have a call coming up in July inside of Pelvic Health Professionals. Anyone can join our membership. That's over at pelvichealthprofessionals.com. We're going to be talking with Sandy Hilton all about pelvic pain and intimacy. I'm really excited for this conversation. It's happening July the 7th at 11 a.m. Eastern. There is a replay if you live in a time zone where that's not a good time for you to be jumping online. The replay is there for you also, and we take very in-depth notes for our pelvic health professional calls so that you can go back and check on those notes as well. Again, to join, it's pelvichealthprofessionals.com. Thank you so much to our amazing team that worked to put this episode together for all of you today. Suzanne, Crunch, Sinead, thank you so much for being amazing humans and for the work that you do in this world. Thank you also to you, dear listener. You make this podcast possible each and every week. Your questions in our Facebook group, the questions that you send to me by email, the voice notes that you leave. If you want to do that, you can head on over to our website. I love to hear your voice. Here on the podcast, we share it if you want us to and you give us permission to share. It's so nice to connect outside of you listening to the podcast. So reach out. I love to connect in real life. And as usual, I want to leave you with a question. What will you be doing this week to stay connected to yourself, your yoga practice, and to your community so that you can share the yoga that lights you up?